Welcome, everyone, to another podcast on your Tuesday. It is 8 a.m. if you are out on the West Coast. If you are out on the East Coast, it's about 11. So we thought we would help you enjoy your cup of coffee while we get into some amazing things today. We have a special guest, the CEO, Ollie from Natix, who we are going to discuss all things about his company. Again, we'll get into that. But Stephen, introduce yourself. Tell us
Sure.
who you are.
Hey, everyone. If you don't know me, Stephen Plata, I'm the Director of Business Development for Tesla under Silicon Valley. Just had the honor of working with John, Kelvin, the crew, Joe, a bunch of great guys. And, it's just always a privilege to give back to the community. And won't go too much into it, but quick little shout out already for X Takeover in July. That's one of our biggest, best events of the year. So, but we'll get back to the podcast here.
Don't get ahead of yourself. But John, president and founder of Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley. Well, so I'm really excited to discuss Natix today. They use your Tesla cameras to 3D map the world around you and rewards you with their tokens. So we're going to get into this. Ollie, how's it going?
Hey guys, good, very good. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk more about all about Tesla and mapping.
Well, awesome. How about this? You just tell us a little bit about yourself and ultimately maybe how you came to Natix.
Yeah, sure. Background: I studied wireless communication. I have PhD in localization systems. Essentially, the specialization of my studies were building location-enabled services, localization systems, GPS. We were also using other technologies like cameras and lidars and other types of radio frequency technologies. Worked quite a few years in the autonomous driving industries back in 2013. We started working on something called dynamic maps, where essentially we update the maps with real world data. So when the traffic signs are changing, when there is a construction on the road, right? The idea was that this map should basically replicate the real world one-to-one with almost no latency. 2020, we started Natix. Essentially started as a computer vision AI company. Computer vision AI is a subcategory of machine learning, deep learning that has to do with image processing and video processing. So we were actually building AI stack for cameras. And then 2022, we realized that we just don't want to focus on AI stack, but also on the infrastructure that generates the data to do all kinds of crazy things that the AI does, right? So very soon we started working on building the largest camera infrastructure in the world without owning a single camera, the same way that Uber has the largest taxi network in the world without owning a single taxi. One of the models that was quite straightforward to us was crypto incentivized, physical infrastructure. So essentially, you incentivize your users who are contributing, in this case, their cameras and the data that the camera generates with crypto, with our own token, essentially. And with the right mechanisms, this is much more potent in terms of building your network compared to, let's say, giving them fiat money or not rewarding them at all, which has been happening in the industry as well, right? So Google Maps, for example, they provide you some services, they get your data, they don't provide you anything for your data. The first product that we launched as part of this umbrella of Internet of Cameras, we call it, is a smartphone app. It's called DriveN. You download the app on your phone, you put the phone on the dashboard of your car, you drive around, the AI is essentially mapping the world, and you earn rewards. You have navigation in it, you have dashcam functionality in it. It's a gamified user experience. And last year we started, kind of thinking about how can we generate more richer kinds of data. And when it comes to collecting images and videos, 360 is the holy grail, essentially, for a lot of application that goes even beyond mapping, which we can talk about, like autonomous driving and scenario generation we're working on, or even spatial computing. So yeah, we very easily realized, by the way, our motto is to tap into existing hardwares rather than building our own. So we could have built our own 360 device. It would have costed us a couple of $1,000s, which means then we could have sold it to the end users even higher. It's very difficult to scale. Or we could tap into existing hardware, which in this case is a Tesla. It has 4 cameras that we can access. It's a front, 2 sides, and the rear camera through the dashcam functionality. So yeah, we started building VX360. I guess we did the collaboration with you guys since day one. And yeah, VX360 is a little box. You plug it into the glove box of your Tesla. It captures the entire, let's say, your dashcam footage, and you earn reward. So some people also say we do have the same functionality in the Tesla app. Well, a couple of things. First of all, it's lower quality, what you get in terms of the imagery that we're collecting. Second thing is, yeah, they're not basically rewarding you for the imagery that is being collected. We are using that video data that you're contributing to us, which is your data essentially, in order to build better maps, in order to, for the testing and validation side of autonomous driving, we can dig a little bit deeper. And also for something for physical AIs, for robots and for autonomous cars. Basically, it's called visual positioning system for them to be able to navigate in the real world. That's why we're rewarding you for the data that you're giving to us.
You know, I was some type of high level up on Google reviews way back in the day, like a decade ago, whatever it was. We didn't get rewarded in crypto. We didn't get rewarded in any financial realm, but I got a pair of socks one year from the Google Maps team. So maybe Natix will work on some socks too, not stocks, but socks. You know? But I wanted to follow up with that, just a little bit of what was the, you know, we definitely see the problem that you're addressing and how you're addressing it in a much more efficient and effective way. But was there a single point for you that was the inspiration or the mission behind getting Natix off the ground?
Yeah, so, you know, as I said, we have been working with computer vision AI for a long time, and we realized it's extremely powerful. I think camera is what we, so to say, have been saying for many years, king of sensors. That's why Elon has been betting on cameras instead of lidars or you know, a bunch of other sensors, at least, you know, for the past few years, because it's commonly available. The price point is relatively, you know, low, and you can do a lot together with computer vision AI. And AI is growing at a super fast pace. So for us, this sensor was kind of a no-brainer to have access to. And we knew that with the pace that AI is growing, you need data from this kind of sensor, both for training the computer vision AI models, but also for, you know, that you can grab insight from the real world essentially and do many different applications. So that was kind of the main motivation why we wanted to build a decentralized camera infrastructure. And, you know, of course, we have cameras in all kinds of different, you know, let's say devices, right? We have cameras in cars, we have in smartphones, we have in drones. And this was kind of the vision from day one. So right now we're mostly focused on drivers and smartphone cameras and car cameras, but we're definitely thinking of expanding into other types of cameras, which offer also a wider range of applications and use cases that we can use this camera infrastructure for.
Yeah, I can imagine. It seems like, you know, obviously solving a big gap and also just really just using something that people are already doing and helping them out. And building, I mean, you know, we've been a partner for a while now, but, you know, over these past couple of years, what were some of your initial challenges? And, you know, how have you seen, you know, the company kind of evolve from the very beginning?
Yeah. So back in the times when we started, kind of crypto incentivized physical infrastructure was very new. That means if you wanted to, like, let's say, build a mapping network with smartphone cameras, or right now we're tapping into Tesla. It was relatively new. There were a couple of other companies that have done this, but there was no, let's say, golden formula to do, for example, how you split reward amongst your users, right? And each different business model has their own, you know, kind of limitations, I would say, right? So you cannot just copy paste another company that is, let's say, providing connectivity with us, that we are working with like drivers and cameras, in our context. So kind of building the right model took us some time, took us a lot of trial and error. And also, like, I can give you guys another example that was challenging. Like when we launched the first version of our smartphone app, we had some issues with retention and stickiness, right? Smartphone is something that you still, every time that you basically sit in your car, you have to take out your phone, place it on the dashboard, and drive. So there is this little friction there is this little friction for the user to basically start contributing in terms of data to our network. And a couple of things that we did trial and error and we tested that worked very well were, first of all, provide utility to the driver. So they don't just start using your app because of the earning. They also get other added values from it. That's why we added navigation, dashcam functionality. We're also looking into some like ADAS functionalities, simple ADAS functionalities that users can get via their smartphone. Another one was, make it a little bit more fun for them, a little bit more addictive for them, because a lot of our users are occupational drivers. These guys are in the road for 8+ hours essentially. And if we can make it a little bit more engaging, we would increase the stickiness of the app and also the retention rate. So we gamified our user experience and tied it to the reward that they're going to get, right? So I'm not going to go into details, but the kind of even the design of this incentivization and the gamification was something that, we had to do trial and error, and it worked very well. Right after we did all of these things, our stickiness and retention went anywhere from 7 to 15 times in the span of 2 months. So many challenges, but these were a couple of them that comes to mind. And of course, we have a whole new set of challenges now with VX360. So this box for the Tesla hardware. But I think because we're quite well experienced with drivers as kind of user types, and collecting data on the road and kind of how to reward our users, it's gonna be an easier game than it was for the first product that we released.
So we'll have a whole section that we could kind of do a breakdown of the VX360. I'd love to learn more about the hardware component and what it enables as far as software and all of that. But I'd like to know a little too just about the short, maybe medium and even long-term goals of Natix as far as, what Natix intends to do with, you have all these vehicles out there constantly running around, pulling in all this data. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the goals that you have to use for that data?
Yeah, so we have 3 pillars right now that we are kind of supplying our data to, or use cases, applications. One of them is map making. So all of these vehicles, the smartphone cameras that are out there, they help us to create more updated maps. Essentially, right? So they detect traffic signs, they detect change in speed limits, road constructions, all this kind of information that is valuable to build better maps and hence better mobility, better navigation services. That's number one. Number two, which we're working on, which is even more exciting at the end of the day, is training, testing, and validation of the autonomous driving stack. So we actually started working on something called scenario generation based on real world data. When you actually train your autonomous driving stack, you have a new functionality, let's say, you train it based on synthetic data or real world data, you need to now validate this. And you need to validate it with real world data. You cannot validate it also based on synthetic data. You cannot both train your model and validate it based on synthetic data. So you can either build many vehicles and put them around the world with a lot of sensors and referencing tools and so on. They're gonna cost each one over $1 million, and you need them to drive millions of miles in order to generate what we call edge cases, right? So for example, some animals being on the curbside of the road and then just suddenly deciding to step in, and whether your basically system can maneuver around it, right? So this is where we need the real world data, and this is what we're using the real world data for testing and validation. So we generate these edge cases via 360 video data that we are collecting from the vehicles, simulation environments to validate whether a functionality of an autonomous driving stack works or not. And then this will really drastically increase the speed of development when it comes to such companies. The third one we are looking at is a very, very interesting use case is called visual positioning system. So we can actually use the data that we are collecting from both smartphone cameras as well as, let's say, Tesla vehicles and other cars that we're also tapping into. We basically use this data to create a 3D reconstruction of the world, and then use this as a base layer for robots or let's say autonomous cars to locate themselves very precisely in a three-dimensional space relative to other objects and be able to interact with it and navigate around it. So these are kind of the three main use cases that we're focusing on. And I think in the next 2-3 years, we just want to scale both from the supply side of the data as well as the monetization side, which is more and more big players joining Natix in terms of building applications on top of Natix.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Kind of just diving a little bit into how Natix works. Can you just talk a little bit about like the core functionality? How does Natix use the Tesla cameras to create a 3D map of the world?
Yeah, so in terms of VX360, which is the name for the, let's say, the device for Tesla, it's quite simple. You plug it into the glove box of your Tesla. There's a USB-A port, and you just plug this box in. It has a very large storage unit and a couple of other sensors because we're also collecting data, other kinds of metadata around the video data that we're collecting from your vehicle. And you need Wi-Fi connectivity to upload this video data. So if you're at home, basically, if you have Wi-Fi at your garage, it automatically connects to the Wi-Fi and it uploads whenever you're home. And if you don't have Wi-Fi at places that you park your car, it has a very large storage capacity, so it can store over 22 hours of video data, which can last you pretty much for the entire week if you're just a normal commuter. And if you don't have Wi-Fi where you park your car, you can just get the box out of the car. You can just take it home or at your office. You plug it into just electricity. It connects automatically to the Wi-Fi of that space, and it uploads the data. And essentially, we capture that 360 data from the 4 cameras of the Tesla vehicles, and we use that data through different pipelines for the 3 use cases that I explained to you. So it's different. Let's say it's all of them are AI, essentially pipelines, but they're different. So we have one pipeline for map making, we have another pipeline for scenario generation for the autonomous driving, and then we have a different pipeline for the 3D reconstruction of the world and visual positioning system. So it's different pipeline that the data gets fed into for different applications.
You're talking about something before too, just the general cost of what this, if Ford were to come out and say, hey, we want to do some real world 3D mapping, like what would it cost to have that vehicle out there? Or you might even have to have a driver that's getting paid on top of the vehicle, all the hardware. Meanwhile, besides the VX360, the hardware and everything else you have, there's really no major overhead cost to what you guys are doing. So it just made this whole process. It's the best way I could think of it. It's like you're the deep seek of 3D mapping. Like you just broke this down into the most cost-effective way that it could ever be done, and at such a large scale too, and quickly, which is incredible to hit
exactly. Yeah, I mean, as you said, so you might have seen these Google Map cars that used to run around. Less of it right now, but there used to be quite a lot of them. These guys, bad boys, they cost over $500,000, right? In the case of autonomous driving, the stack gets a little bit more complicated. It costs over $1 million for testing purposes because of the referencing tools that they also put in there, right? So obviously, the data quality that we collect using just 4 cameras of the Tesla is not as good as super expensive hardware that these guys are using, but the quantity of data that we're collecting is so much higher that we can do a lot of crazy things with it at the end of the day. So that's kind of working in our advantage. And yeah, I mean, our model, we can talk about it also briefly, but crypto incentivize, let's say, data collection, or we call it like physical infrastructure creation, is extremely efficient. I would even argue if we were paying, let's say, dollars to our users, it wouldn't have been as potent and as effective as giving them, our token. Because when we give them our token, we are essentially giving them a part of this company, a part of our success. And if we get successful, the more data we sell, the more our kind of project grows. They actually grow with us. Yes, they can kind of liquidate it instantly and get a dollar kind of equivalent of that when they receive the reward. But many of these guys are actually long-term believers of the projects, and we saw that actually through our journey with the first product. It's going to be very much the same with also VX360. It's quite potent actually, this token incentivized model, and I think that's kind of definitely a key enabler in crypto. It's an umbrella term. It's called DePIN, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure, DEPIN. And this is kind of, in a nutshell, very similar companies to Natix. Whenever they want to build a infrastructure in terms of sensors, connectivity, compute, storage, they essentially crowdsource it and tokenize it. And this enables them to bootstrap the network 10 to 100 times faster, collect that data or build that infrastructure 10 to 100 times cheaper. And this is actually where the traditional models have no way of competing with such models.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like this is the term I keep thinking of recently, and it's like it's a brave new world. It's just what it comes down to. And we could kind of go into some other questions about moving towards the blockchain realm versus going public on the stock market in a bit. But I just want to stay on the topic of Natix specifically, and how do the drivers get rewarded with the Natix token, and maybe even what do you do with Natix once you have it, besides it kind of being this token that can also appreciate in value as well?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the drivers actually get rewarded with 2 kinds of, let's say, currencies. One of them is a cryptocurrency. It's called Natix token, as we talked about it. It's our native utility token. The other one is called gems. We also have a marketplace inside the app. It's going to be the same for VX360 companion app. And you can also access a lot of like offers and gift cards and vouchers and electronics and things like that through our marketplace. So the other currency, which is called gems, has a lot of in-app, let's say, purchasing capabilities. It's not a liquid currency, essentially. In terms of Natix, which is I would say the most important, let's say, currency that we use to reward our users. It's something that can appreciate over time because there's a value accrual mechanism. The way that our system works is when we generate revenue from the data that our community, our users are providing to us, what we do is that 40% of that we use to buy back and burn the tokens permanently. So the model is actually deflationary over time. We have already burned in, I think, 4 transactions, quite a lot of tokens. So we started with 100 billion total supply, which was the max ever Natix tokens created at the, let's say, genesis point. And right now we are around, I believe, 100 million tokens less in the last 4 or 5 months as that we have started the buyback and burn process. And then there's another 30% of the protocol revenue that we generate from the monetization of the data, which is going towards the staker. So what you can do with the Natix token as well is to stake it, which means lock it for a certain period of time and participate in we call it system governance. So you can vote on certain decisions that Natix is making. That's why this is a community-based project. So we include our token holders, our community into the decisions that we're making. For example, if you're changing within the reward system of VX360 or DriveN, we want to include the users into the voting as well. We give them a couple of options, and they're the ones that choose, let's say, what they prefer. So for you to actually lock your tokens and participate in this kind of system governance or voting, you also earn reward. There's a staking reward actually that happens. So this is another way that we also reward back the long-term, let's say, believers of the project and whoever is participating into our network.
Right. It's almost like companies like Apple, where they'll pay out dividends to their shareholders, where it's very similar with Natix. But at the end of the day, everything is so much quicker. It's so much more real time, and I feel like that's just an advantage of blockchain that I mean the markets and financial world as it is today will never be able to mirror in any capacity. It's just it's old world tech.
Definitely. So just a disclaimer, it's not exactly the same as dividends because, we're going to have problems with SEC.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to connect.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, like in the crypto world, it's more about active participation. So we are rewarding active participation of our token holders, but also people who are contributing with their data, right? So if you're a token holder and you actively participate in like voting and you're trying to move things and support, then those guys get rewarded. But also if you're contributing with providing your data, that's also another way that we are kind of rewarding you. But yeah, there are similarities. I'm not gonna lie, it's very similar the way that people come, except that I think that the shareholders, unlike a lot of these deepened models, the shareholders go and buy. The only way to become a shareholder of the company is to go buy it off the market. For us, the biggest, let's say, allocation in terms of whoever can have token is actually towards people that are contributing with their data, right? So we have, from this total 100 billion token that we ever created, we have different allocations, right? And the majority of it actually goes into people who are providing their data, because that's the most important, let's say, piece of this puzzle. Without these guys, we don't have anything. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest differentiators as well. But yes, there are a lot of similarities in that case.
Thank you for clarifying.
Well, I think you talked a little bit about how, there's a difference between the stock market versus even really like having the Natix coin, because I think, crypto, as you said, is all about the community. But can you just tell us a little bit about what can users do with the Natix tokens?
So as I mentioned, you can stake them and participate in system governance, or you can trade it at the end of the day in the open market. So these are basically the main two functionalities of the Natix token. There's a third functionality that is not released yet, is to run essentially, it gets a little bit more technical, but we're setting up a program where you can run a node, let's say on a cloud infrastructure, and these nodes take care of the validation of the actors, of the data that is being provided. So it's really, because right now it's a little bit kind of in the hands of us as Natix team in order to do these validations, like if people are not cheating, if everything is happening, kind of correctly. Because when you're actually rewarding people with money, there's a lot of cheating that will happen. So right now, a lot of these filtrations are happening by us. Eventually, we want to make this, because we're a crypto project, we want to make this completely decentralized, which means people can run certain nodes, and these nodes have the job to essentially check if the data that are provided by the users are correct and nobody tried to cheat the system and so on. And to run a node, you also need to lock a certain amount of Natix token to be able to run a node. Also, if you do some bad activity, which means you lie, let's say, Stefan, you provided me with fake data, you just recorded your YouTube video of somebody else's dash cam and you provided to me, and this validator guy didn't, or the validator guy was me, and I kind of let it go and I didn't raise the flag, then I need to be penalized as well. So that's why we also reserve a certain amount of Natix for you to be a validator, and you get reward, of course, for you to make sure that the system is running kind of consistently. So this is kind of the third use case of Natix token, but it's not live yet. Hopefully in 2025 we can go live with it.
And without the SEC knocking on all our doors, the staking is very similar to like a certificate of deposit, right? Where you're kind of locking away the token for a little bit of time, but there's a higher percentage return that you'll get out of it. If I heard that correctly.
I am not expert in the US system, to be very honest with you. So I don't want to make direct comparisons.
Or a bond compared to a stock, maybe is a better way of putting it, perhaps.
Let me explain what the staking is, and I think the users can make the kind of the mapping themselves. Yeah, so with staking, essentially you lock your tokens. You go to our platform, you connect your wallet. Token is on Solana, if people are familiar with that blockchain. So you have your Natix tokens there. Then you go and you want to lock in, let's say, 1 million Natix tokens. You lock that, and you start earning reward. There's also the system governance. So whenever there's a voting, you have to participate, and you will only earn reward if you have done, let's say, the system governance as well. And whenever you want to essentially unlock that token and get it back into your wallet, right? Because you don't have access to it, essentially is locked into something called a smart contract, which we don't even control. It's not like you're giving it to us. It's kind of, it's on blockchain, essentially. So when you click on unlock, there is a 3 months cooldown period. So you don't get it immediately, you get it 3 months later. You can do an instant unlock, essentially, and get it immediately, but there would be a 30% withdrawal fee. To avoid any kind of speculative behavior that can happen, in the market. So yeah, this is in a nutshell what it is. Yeah, you lock your tokens. You also have to participate in the voting, kind of in the proposals that happen. You need to participate with voting, and you also earn APY.
No, that's awesome. I think it's, especially given the fact that the community can control it and has a say in what's possible. I think that's awesome. Well, let's get into the product. Talk to us a little bit about, what is VX360, how does it work, and how is it relevant for Natix users?
Yeah, so VX360 is our newest baby. It's going to come out sometime end of March, April, if everything goes well. It's a little box. You can connect it into your Tesla, and we basically access your Tesla footage with the extra metadata that we're collecting. There are two added values for the users. One of them is straightforward earning, because we are using your data. At least we are straightforward about it, and we're giving you something back in return. We're giving you a piece of whatever this economy of Natix is worth and will be worth in the future, right? And the second kind of utility is the dashcam functionality that you're gonna get. We can basically record your entire trip, not just the Sentry mode footages. So your entire trip is being recorded. You can see on the map where the trip was taken. So it's very good also for fleet operators, essentially, if you want a fleet of Tesla, or if you are just a normal, a Tesla owner. So you get a kind of very high quality dashcam functionality as well, recording for the entire trip.
And then when is VX360 supposed to hit the markets?
So that would be, let's say, around April, if everything works well. Hardware is done from our side, so it's ready. We're right now building the operating system, the driver companion app, which needs a little bit more work. Usually people deliver late because of the hardware, because software is more in our hands, and we are far more, let's say, flexible with it. So good news is, hardware is quite, finalized. And on the software side, we're working hard to deliver around April.
Okay, so coming up fairly soon, but you were, and I do want to make sure that everyone knows, like, there are services or ways to get involved in Natix today. And if you could just go over a bit again about, how can I get involved in Natix today?
Yeah. If you're a driver, you can just download our app, Drive And. You can go to our website, natix.network. You can download the app. You can start driving and earn, actually. If you're a Tesla owner, I definitely recommend to buy VX360. It's actually only a few days until end of phase one. The price is $279, and it comes with 200,000 Natix tokens as a bonus once you map a certain amount of kilometers. So on top of your normal reward that you're going to get, this is an additional bonus. Once you contribute a minimum amount of kilometers, urban kilometers to the system, after that, essentially the perks would decrease. So yeah, if you guys are a Tesla owner, I would definitely recommend buying a VX360. These are the main two ways that you can join our network and essentially contribute with either your smartphone camera or with your Tesla cameras.
So we actually kind of in point with that, we actually have a question from our audience. So Tesla Sentinel is asking regarding security concerns. How might Natix address certain items near someone's home, etc., via the phone app and things like that? And I think you've mentioned other things like that before, but maybe we could address that question too.
Yeah, so we actually enable the users to define privacy zones around their home, around their workplace, where we would not collect any data. So the device stops collecting any data around those places. This is basically how we are collecting your private zone. And then another thing that we are doing, which is generic for the data, is before you are contributing your data to our system, we're essentially anonymizing the data at exactly the point of the contribution. So we're removing all the personal identifier information like faces and number plates. This is for the rest of your journey, right? So we block where you don't want us to collect any data or the box to collect any data. And at the point that you want to contribute your footage, we anonymize and strip it down from all the personal identifier information.
And it sounds like that's just by educating, that's the first step, but just making future users of Natix just more comfortable and building that level and relationship of trust between the product, the service, and obviously the users. Very important, especially Tesla owners they're kind of they're tech people for the most part, so they have privacy as a pretty high piece on the list. As we kind of come to a close to a little bit here. I just wanted to ask you too, and we maybe went over this a little bit in the beginning, but just a little bit more on some of the long-term aspirations of Natix. I know you kind of pointed at the potential of mapping out for robots walking around cities, but what are some of your personal long-term aspirations that you have?
Yeah, I think you guys probably have seen NVIDIA's CEO talk, and we're going, in the journey of AI, we're going from agentic AI all the way to physical AI, and physical AI being autonomous cars and robots. We're talking with a lot of these companies actually in the robotics space for autonomous driving, and they essentially have two main challenges. Predominantly, all of them tell us these two main challenges or bottlenecks at the moment. It's not good AI models anymore because it's going at a super fast pace. It's compute. That's why NVIDIA is on the cap table of most of these guys. The other one is real world data. You need the real world data for training, testing, or validation. So there is real problem with real world data. There is a new direction for using synthetic data essentially to create a lot of, let's say, road footages with generative AI, but you cannot do both your training and validation based on synthetic data, based on AI generated data.
I think Tesla's using, what is it, Dojo, right? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Project Dojo?
Yep.
Okay, so kind of similar to what you're saying, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's
exactly.
just an interesting connection of like, you could do a great amount of training synthetically, but you still need to have that real world data.
Real world data for testing and validation. And even for synthetic data, you need to train your generative AI models based on real world data, right? For it to get better and better over time, right? So at the end of the day, I think data is the bottleneck for us, and compute, of course, these two are the bottlenecks for us to reach physical AI at scale. And I think Natix plays a big part of it, because perception is actually a big part of how robots and autonomous cars will operate. I mean, in a human being, your brain is using more than 50% of its capacity for processing visual information. So you can imagine how important this information is. And I mean, as humans, probably we can think of what happens if we lose our eyesight, right? And if we cannot process that understanding of the space and how we can interact with the space and so on. So that's why I think whatever we're building with Natix, which again, just to closing the circle, is Internet of Cameras. We want to have the largest camera infrastructure in the world without owning a single camera, completely by the people, for the people. I think that the opportunity is quite big towards the direction of physical AI. 5-6 years ago, the problem was AI. It was not mature enough. It couldn't do many of the use cases. Now I'm seeing things that it even shocks me, to be very honest with you. At least under the category of computer vision.
Yeah, it's incredible how AI is changing things, and it's awesome how you guys are also staying ahead of it, being relevant in that space, really allowing your community to dictate decisions that the company is making and giving them kind of a stake in it with the coin. So I think it's really important. If you're already driving, you drive a lot, it's vital to why not earn something while just doing normal day activities, and getting the Natix plugged in and being connected to the app along with the VX360 is going to be a complete game changer. But Ollie, I don't know if there's anything else that you kind of just want to share with the audience, maybe anything that was not covered. Obviously, we know the VX360 should be coming out, if all things go right, the end of March, maybe early April. But there's also ways to get involved today, like natix.network. You can type that into your browser along with Natix Network on X. All of those links are posted. But would there be anything that you would like to share with our audience, maybe that we didn't get to?
Yeah, just maybe a quick call to action. Because we're within the Tesla community, if you are a Tesla fleet owner, or Tesla fleet owners, please reach out to us, because we're more and more focusing on also fleets, and we're building specific functionalities for actually fleet operators. So if you are one of the two, a fleet owner, or you're working with the fleet owners and you know them, then please get to us, and we would love to have a chat. I think this would be a very new and exciting kind of direction that we'll be focusing on in the next few months too.
All right, Ali. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time. I mean, John and I, the whole team at TOSV, we're looking forward to just watching Natix grow, seeing how you guys evolve. Obviously, definitely have our ears and eyes tuned in to the official launch of the VX360. But again, thank you for your time today. And again, we'll be sharing updates as we get closer to the launch of the VX360. Any other cool updates that you have, obviously, we'll be posting across our channels. But again, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Oh, go ahead, Ollie.
No. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say natix.network. Type that in your browser or check their handle out there on X, Natix Network. Again, also, if you're watching on YouTube, their YouTube channel is tagged as well. So get connected, get rewarded for doing what you're already doing, which is driving. So, and you're helping really solve everyday problems. So this is going to be really exciting time. So again, get involved, natix.network. They're tagged on X, and we will see you guys all on the next one. And we're excited to also share when VX360 comes out and making that a big moment for all of our Tesla owners and enthusiasts.